It was Halloween night in Guadalajara, Mexico, and the clock had just struck 23:47. Diego Morales, a 4-year-old boy, sat in his small bedroom on the second floor of a modest house in the Americas neighborhood. The room was cloaked in an unsettling darkness, broken only by the faint, flickering orange glow of Halloween candles left by his mother. Shadows stretched across the walls, trembling slightly as the flames danced. A weak light leaked from under the door into the hallway, hinting at the normal world outside, where children in colorful costumes laughed, ran, and collected sweets from door to door. But inside, something was wrong. Daigo's eyes were no longer his own. They were completely white, the pupils absent, staring through the dimly lit room with an unnatural intensity. His small body moved in stiff, almost robotic motions as he sat up in bed. His head slowly turned toward the window, the movements deliberate and calm, yet chilling. His parents, Carmen and Roberto, stood frozen at the doorway, unable to speak. Carmen felt a cold shiver run down her spine as the realization struck her. This was not just a bad dream. Daigo's voice emerged, deep and unfamiliar, resonating with an authority far beyond his years. The doors, they open tonight, he said, pointing toward the window. His small hand trembled slightly as he pressed it against the cold glass. Outside, in the dim streetlight, he claimed he could see shadows moving among the people, entities that were normally hidden, now drawn closer by the thin veil between worlds. Carmen wanted to scream, but fear paralyzed her. Roberto cautiously approached, his heart pounding. For 13 minutes, Daigo spoke of things they could not understand: shadows, watchers, and portals invisible to ordinary eyes. He described them as if he had always known their existence, their hunger, and their danger. The Halloween night, once filled with laughter, had become a haunting window into a realm no adult could perceive. After the terrifying events of Halloween night, Daigo Morales, still only 4 years old, had returned to his bedroom, but the fear in the room had shifted into something else, a quiet determination. In the dim glow of the remaining candles, he picked up black chalks and began to draw on the walls, his tiny hands moving with surprising precision. These were not ordinary childlike scribbles. The shapes and symbols appeared deliberate, almost ritualistic, circles within triangles, eyes that seemed to stare back at the room, door-like shapes framed with intricate lines. Each mark resonated with a strange energy, as if the room itself acknowledged their purpose. His parents, Carmen and Roberto, stood behind him, both horrified and fascinated. Carmen took out her phone, carefully photographing each drawing. "What are you doing, Daigo?" she whispered, though part of her knew the answer might go beyond words. The boy didn't turn around. His concentration was absolute. His lips moved quietly, almost inaudibly, as though whispering protective words that neither parent could understand. The walls seemed to respond. Shadows twisted away from the drawn symbols, and the faint orange candlelight glimmered over the chalk lines, giving them a luminous, almost sacred aura. Daigo's movements were rhythmic, confident, and far beyond what one would expect from a 4-year-old. Each symbol seemed to lock something in place, closing invisible doors and stabilizing spaces in the room that no adult could see. Carmen sent the images to her cousin Lucia, an anthropologist familiar with PI Colombian cultures. An hour later, the response arrived. The symbols were authentic protective seals, used by ancient civilizations to guard against dark forces. But how could a child, who had never studied these things, create them? The answer, Carmen realized, lay in what Daigo had witnessed on Halloween: glimpses of a world hidden, where the veil between the living and the spirit world thinned. Daigo continued drawing silently, unafraid, a small guardian in the flickering candlelight, bridging two worlds with every precise, deliberate stroke of chalk. The room had become a sanctuary, protected by the hands of a child who saw more than anyone else could ever imagine. The morning after the unsettling Halloween night, Daigo Morales was taken to Father Martinez, the respected priest of their local parish. The small office smelled faintly of incense and aged wood, a quiet sanctuary from the chaos of the night before. At 60 years old, Father Martinez had seen many strange cases, exorcisms, and haunted houses, but as soon as Daigo stepped into the room, the priest felt something different, a presence that was not fear, yet carried weight. "Good morning, Daigo," Father Martinez said gently, motioning to a chair. His parents, Carmen and Roberto, stood behind him, anxious and tired. "Your parents told me about last night. It must have been frightening." Daigo walked calmly to the center of the room and sat with an intensity that startled the priest. "Father," he began, his voice unnaturally firm for a 4-year-old. "You know them too, don't you?" Father Martinet's eyes widened slightly. Who, Daigo? The Watchers. The ones who guard, Daigo replied, his gaze steady. They showed me everything. The doors, the shadows, the ones who hunger and the ones who protect. For the next 2 hours, Daigo described what no child should ever be able to articulate. He spoke of layers of existence, spaces between worlds, and entities trapped by strong emotions, rage, sorrow, fear. He pointed to a map of Guadalajara on the wall, identifying houses where dark forces had entered and left lingering shadows. He explained that the Watchers, guardians of the thin veil, needed humans to help prevent these forces from spreading. Father Martinez, who had always relied on scripture and ritual to address spiritual disturbances, listened carefully, taking notes with growing concern. Daigo's explanations were precise, coherent, and verified by later investigations. He described the protective symbols he drew at home and the role of the Watchers in guiding him to close dangerous portals. By the time their session ended, it was clear to Father Martinez Daigo had witnessed something extraordinary. His understanding of the unseen world went beyond intuition. It was knowledge, a direct insight into the spiritual balance that few adults could perceive. Daigo was not just a child. He was a conduit, chosen to bridge the human and the spirit realms. Following Daigo's revelations, Dr. Elena Vargas, a parapsychologist at the University of Guadalajara, decided to investigate the anomalies firsthand. Skeptical yet methodical, she arrived at the Morales household in early November, carrying specialized equipment, EMF detectors, infrared cameras, thermometers, and recording devices. Daigo greeted her calmly, a quiet assurance in his eyes. You don't believe in all of this yet, do you? Elena asked. Daigo shook his head. I will show you the evidence, he replied. Over the next several hours, Daigo led her through a structured series of tests. Psychological assessments confirmed he was a typical 4-year-old, emotionally and cognitively normal. Yet when Elena asked him to describe what he had seen on Halloween, he detailed locations across Guadalajara houses, cemeteries, and public spaces with precise information she could later verify independently. He explained how careless actions had created cracks between dimensions, weak points that allowed dark entities to peer into the human world. Intrigued, Elena conducted field investigations. The first site was the house on Morella Street, number 847, an abandoned residence Daigo had identified. Arriving at night, she and her team observed signs of recent ritual activity, broken windows, graffiti, and a palpable cold in the air. EMF readings spiked, temperature dropped sharply, and one camera captured a shadow moving independently of any light source. Scratches and marks appeared on the walls that had not been present moments before. Over subsequent nights, Elena verified other locations Daigo had named. Complaints of unusual noises, reports of vandalism, and social media evidence of disrespectful rituals aligned with Daigo's accounts. Each location corresponded to a crack in the veil, a vulnerable point for spiritual intrusion. Elena documented everything meticulously, combining scientific rigor with the extraordinary testimonies of a child who had witnessed what most adults could not. Daigo's guidance proved invaluable. He identified dangerous sites and showed how protective symbols could stabilize these cracks. Together, they formed the foundation for a systematic approach to safeguarding the city, bridging empirical research with spiritual observation in a way no conventional study could achieve. As Halloween approached the following year, the team prepared for the final expedition to prevent a catastrophic spiritual breach. Daigo Morales, now fully aware of his role, joined a group of 15 experts, including mediums, priests of various faiths, energy healers, and anthropologists. The location was a secluded clearing in the mountains east of Guadalajara, marked by ancient trees and signs of recent ritual activity. Black candles, blood symbols, and animal bones littered the site, clear evidence that dark practitioners had partially opened a portal. Daigo walked confidently to the center of the clearing, pointing out the precise location where the veil was weakest. The portal is partially open, he said calmly. They are waiting for Halloween, when the barrier will be thinnest, to complete the opening. If they succeed, countless entities will cross over, not just shadows, but larger, ancient beings. The team formed a protective circle around him. Father Martinez led Catholic prayers, while a visiting rabbi recited psalms. A Mazatec shaman burned copal and sacred tobacco, and energy healers channeled light and intention toward the center. Daigo acted as the anchor, a conduit through which the protective energy could focus. Immediately, the team felt resistance. The air became dense and cold. EMF readings spiked, and a massive dark figure began to rise from the ground, an amalgamation of hundreds of entities, each screaming and writhing. The team held the circle tightly, chanting, praying, and maintaining focus. Suddenly, radiant forms beings of golden blue light from another dimension descended, surrounding the circle, amplifying the protective barrier. Daigo's voice, not entirely his own, commanded the watchers, seal the portal now. Light wove into a protective web over the rift. The dark entity shrieked, fragmented, and was absorbed back into its realm. The portal closed completely. The air cleared, temperature normalized, and the instruments confirmed the anomaly had vanished. Exhausted but relieved, the team celebrated quietly. Daigo, still young but extraordinary, had acted as the bridge between worlds, guided by the Watchers. The largest portal in Guadalajara was sealed permanently, and the city was safe for the foreseeable future. Daigo returned home, carrying a small crystal given by the Guardians, a reminder that he would always be ready to protect the balance between worlds, yet still be a child when the time allowed.